my son was just 7 years old, I went along to his development talk with his teacher. When I got there, she said, "He is going to make a great leader." And I paused because I'm an organizational psychologist with 25 years working in the large corporates with leaders. She said, "Oh, you should see him in the playground. He commands his friends. He gets them all to play football with him. He says, you, and you are playing football with me." And they do. So, of course, at this point, he's now rolling his eyes. I said, that's interesting. I said, when he can inspire his peers to play a sport with him, then he's going to be a great leader. But isn't it interesting how we view leadership? This commander, the person who's in control, the person who knows it all. But that isn't what employers need from leaders, is it? I've got another story, and this one might be a little bit familiar to you. It's about a senior leader, and I'm going to call him Mr. Whiteboard to protect his identity. He was standing in, looking after a team that didn't have a leader, and he turned up with some Post-its and some pens, and he said to the team, "We're going to get your backlog, your tasks that you have to do on this whiteboard." And they protested. "Oh, no. You don't realize, for the last week, we've been doing all our work on the digital system." He said, "No, you need to get this on the whiteboard. You're not mature enough to use the digital system." Again, they protested. And again, he used words like, "If you're clever enough, perhaps you can go down the corridor and have a look at a whiteboard and see how it's done." Eventually, one of the team members said, "Let's just get on with this." And reluctantly and begrudgingly, they started to do as they were told. This 15-minute meeting took 1 hour. I stayed for the post-mortem. Who does he think he is? Treating us like we're 5 years old, treating us like we're kids in the playground. I wish I could say that this is a one-off, but I hear and see many of these stories when I go around various companies across the globe. I reckon, and I calculated this, that 10 hours of productivity was lost that day. I'm always a little bit curious. Why is it that we're still leading as we did in the Industrial Revolution? The world was a lot linear there, it was slower, and now there's disruption happening all the time. We can't sit around waiting for the next disruption because it's happening right now. But yet, we're still leading in this old-fashioned, yesterday's kind of way. We need leaders who can empower their team. This up and down the hierarchy, this slowness isn't going to work in today's world, where we're all going through major transformations all the time. Mr. Whiteboards of the world, as I say, they exist all around. And let me just clarify what I mean by leadership. Management, leadership, we get them a little bit confused. My simple definition, because I work like that, management is about things. So, systems and processes. Leadership is much more about people. How do you inspire people? How do you motivate people? How do you create a psychological safe environment so everybody can thrive? Now, we all probably know about psychological safety because Amy Edmondson has done such a fantastic job of telling us, but creating it is a different story. One CEO said to me, "Liz, I'm the only one in this organization who has any ideas." I thought that's a bit strange. There are 40,000 people in this company. Anyway, turns out I went and I spoke to his 100 vice presidents. And guess what? They had ideas. But when we got to the bottom of it, they said, but what happens is we go to the management team meeting and we are expected to produce these glossy PowerPoints that are perfect. And of course, our ideas are not perfect, and the CEO gets a bit annoyed and shouts at us, so we tend to shut up and keep quiet. The ideas are then lost. So, is it any wonder that this guy, this CEO, he was an engineer. He was a high-performing engineer, and he got promoted and promoted till he became CEO. This often happens, doesn't it? We promote the people that are good at their day job into leadership. But leadership requires a totally different skill set. So it's no wonder that leaders are not as effective as they could be, because they're doing the wrong job. I wonder how many of you would go under the operating table for major surgery with a general practitioner who was a high performer, maybe just done a few minor surgeries in his or her surgery. I don't think so. I'm a psychologist, so I belong to a professional body. I have to continuously learn and develop. I have to stand by the ethics and standards of my profession. Yeah, anyone can lead. And there's no comeback. I've met many teams that are, disengaged, they're having a tough time, but yet the leader stays in place. So why is it then that we don't have more regulations when it comes to leadership? Because I really think we should. Wouldn't it be great if you needed to have a license to lead? Right. So the way I see this, and I haven't quite thought it through thoroughly, but leaders would have to answer to the ethics and standards of leadership. They would have to have continuous professional development. And of course, there'd be the penalty points. If they had high attrition rates, maybe high sickness rates, or their teams were disengaged for a long period of time, even losing their license to lead. Because other professions have that. Other professions really stand by what it is that people are doing. So I think it's time that we really think about this license to lead. When leaders are not leading, it actually costs us. I don't know if any of you follow Gallup, but this year Gallup said that 23% of the global workforce are engaged. Just look around in this room. Who are those lucky few that are engaged at work? Disengagement is costing us $8.8 trillion. It's a lot of money, right? And that's equivalent to a GDP, a global GDP of 9%. Let me go further. When you have a highly engaged workforce in the top quartile of engagement, your profitability goes up to 23%, more than those that are not, right? So one of the things that often comes up when we're looking at engagement is recognition. It's a huge reason why people are feeling disengaged. But when we think of recognition, don't think about the money. That's often what we jump to. I met an HR director recently who said to me, you know what, the engagement score is low on recognition, but we didn't pay out a bonus. I said, I highly doubt it's about that. Some of the exit interviews that I have done, leaders have told me, well, I left because I was expected to miss my son's birthday party, work long weekends, and really put in a lot of effort without getting any recognition for that. no thank you, no appreciation, and really not feeling valued. When in fact, we know that when we recognize people, it really helps them to feel wanted and needed in the organization. But recognition requires a leader to have soft skills. You need to be able to understand your people. And I think this is really interesting because soft skills are often cited as really important, right? You know, it's something that we'll need when AI take over the world. You know, we're human. We need these soft skills. And I remember one HR director saying to me when I was designing a leadership development program, she said, can you make sure you don't include any of those soft skills? You know, that fluffy stuff. Make sure you just include the hard stuff. But surely the soft skills are the hard stuff, because I know many leaders that really struggle to master those soft skills. And I have to say that the CEO of LinkedIn agrees with me. I don't actually know him personally. But Ryan Roslansky recently said 72% of executives now say that soft skills are more important than AI. I know a question that I've often been asked from a leader is, well, if you're so clever and know so much about leadership, how do I motivate Jim, my team member? And I'll quite often flippantly say, I don't know how to motivate Jim. But why not? Well, I can give you 5 models on how to motivate Jim, but it won't make a difference. You need to understand your team members. You need to understand who they are, what motivates them. And I can tell you something, whatever motivates them this week is going to be different in a month's time. So you really do need to hone in on those soft skills. But one of the things that the leaders will often say to me is, I'm too busy. I don't really have time to get to know my team members. And this is a problem, I think, in organizations today. I call it the busyness syndrome. People running around, double-book meetings, overflowing inboxes, with no time to think, let alone lead. And we all probably know that the more hours we work, the less productive we get. So it's not beneficial. In fact, multitasking is really bad for us. So if any of you are sitting in those meetings and you're on your smartphones, think again, because a survey out of London University said that multitasking on electronic devices is actually decreasing your IQ more than if you smoke weed. I'm not condoning that, by the way. So busyness, and what about the future of our work? I'm just thinking about a lot of organizations now are saying that they find it really difficult to retain young talent. And my Gen X peers tell me, well, they're just the same as we were at that age. I disagree. The Gen Z were practically born with a smartphone in their hand. They're digital natives. At a press of a button, they can find out anything they want to. They certainly have more knowledge than I ever had at their age. I've got 2 of them at home. And during the summer, we went to Los Angeles. And as we were walking along Santa Monica Pier, I overheard my eldest saying, "It's so real." And I was like, It is real? And he said, "Nobody's just like Grand Theft Auto." They knew their way around LA better than I did, who's been there several times before. They knew the street names, they knew where to shop and where to eat. They will have no problem sending their avatar to Mr. Whiteboard at headquarters whilst they're sitting in a beach hut in Bali. No problem at all. So I really don't believe that any leader gets up in the morning and goes, hey, you know what, I'm going to be a bad leader today. I'm really going to demotivate my team and disengage them. It doesn't happen. It's a lack of self-awareness, I believe. That 95% of us believe that we are self-aware. What do you think the reality is? 10 to 15%. It's very low. Ask my kids, they'll tell me, you're not self-aware, Mum. I don't believe that anyone goes in there with bad intentions and wants to make work a bad place for anyone. I just think we're putting people in positions that haven't got the skills to do it. My youngest had his development talk recently. He's now 15. And his teacher said to him, how do you deal with conflict as a 15-year-old boy? And this time, there was no rolling of the eyes. Actually, there were tears in my eyes of pride. Because he said, well, my friends and I have set up this circle of trust. He said, we've got a diverse group of friends and they come with their different perspectives. And we include everyone, we listen to them, and we don't make jokes about anything that they say. I thought, wow, he's just created psychological safety. Amazing. So I believe that we have to change the way we lead. We have to say goodbye to the Mr. Whiteboards of the world. And we have to think about how we can put skilled people in these leadership positions. Because after all, when we have the workplaces where it's inspiring, innovating, and creative, we will really bring out the absolute best of the human being. Thank you.